but no one would come forward to testify against them. Nor was the Mongols' violence limited to the outside world. Even within the ranks of the club, the gang has such a reputation for assaulting its prospects that by the late 90s, the membership was dwindling. No one wanted to join a club if it meant that every day and night he had to worry about taking a savage beatdown. In 1998, they adopted a new national policy, no beating on the prospects, and almost everyone stuck by it, everyone except Red Dog. Despite the fact, as National Sergeant-at-Arms, he was supposed to be enforcing the club's rules and constitution. Yes, the club had a 70-page constitution. Red Dog was a loose cannon riding his Harley through life with a fuck-everyone attitude. For months, he was in my face, smashing his heavy fist into my chest, at times uppercutting me as hard as he could. More than once, he sucker-punched me in the gut, leaving me doubled over, gasping for air and ready to puke. But I was a prospect, so I gritted my teeth and sucked it up. That morning, we had all hooked up at CJ's house, where the dudes drank hard, and I did my prospecting thing, fetching beer for the patches, as fully inducted members of the club are called, lighting cigarettes, watching them do line after line of crank and coke. Then, when Red Dog figured everyone was drunk and high enough, he gave an abrupt order, "Let's go shoot." This was a Mongol membership requirement. Before any prospect could attain full patch status in the club, he had to prove that he owned a firearm and was a decent shot. When I got behind the wheel of my bullet-pocked red Mustang, I thought we were headed out to an actual firing range, and so did my ATF backup. We formed a ragged convoy behind Red Dog's burgundy Monte Carlo as we left the Visalia city limits. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, checking to see that my backup was still there. But as we got farther and farther into the countryside of vineyards and orange groves, eventually turning down a remote dirt driveway, I realized that we had completely lost my backup. I also realized this wasn't going to be a standard firearms qualification exercise. There was nothing ATF could do to help me now. If the shit went bad, it just went bad. I was alone. Now, with a collection of new semi-automatic pistols on the hoods of our cars and the loaded magazines clicking into place, the mood in the orange grove suddenly turned dark and twisted. One Mongol brother stood loading rounds into a street sweeper, a high-capacity, drum-fed, semi-automatic 12-gauge shotgun that looked similar to the old Thompson submachine gun from the Prohibition era, an awesome assault weapon beloved by drug dealers and hardcore gangsters. The street sweeper has since been banned by the feds. I knew that a gun like that was useless for target shooting. Like the Tommy gun, a street sweeper is a pure killing machine. Without warning, Red Dog was up in my face again, head cocked to one side, hollering crazily, accusing me of being an undercover cop. "How long was your fucking academy, Billy?" "What are you talking about, Red Dog?" "You know what I'm talking about, Billy. Who the fuck did you tell you were coming up here? Who the fuck did you tell you were going to be with the Mongols today? Who, Billy?" "I didn't tell anybody. Come on, Red. Why are you acting like this? I didn't tell nobody." He locked his slate blue eyes on mine and in torturous silence stared at me for 15 seconds. "So you're saying if I put a bullet in the back of your fucking head right now, ain't nobody going to know where to start looking for you. Is that right, Billy?" "Yeah, I guess that's right, Red Dog." He gestured across the dusty, desolate, trash-strewn field, told me to go set up some cans to shoot at. I went to do as he ordered, and when I turned my back to Red Dog and the other armed Mongols, the icy realization hit me. After firefights in Vietnam, after 25 years in law enforcement, this is the way it ended. I was gonna die on a gorgeous Southern California day by a Mongol bullet in the middle of a godforsaken, abandoned orange grove somewhere outside Visalia. I closed my eyes and began to walk, waiting for the bullets to start tearing through my back. It was a simple equation. If they'd made me, I was going to die today. I stumbled across the field in my motorcycle boots and suddenly saw an image of my two sons standing tearfully over my open casket. I'd felt similar, eerie premonitions during my tour of duty in Vietnam, but here, without question, there was nothing worth dying for. Suddenly, I heard a loud pop and felt my boot crushing an empty beer can. My knees buckled, but I bent down and picked up the can. I glanced back toward the Mongols and saw them talking in a tight circle instead of pointing their guns and training their sights on me. No, they weren't going to shoot me. At least not right now. Queen, line 1. It was a bright morning in late February 1998, and I was sitting at my office on Van Nuys Boulevard typing up reports when I got a call that changed my life. Picking up the receiver, I heard a voice of Special Agent John Ciccone calling from ATF Group 2 in downtown Los Angeles. "Billy boy," he said, "how'd you like a shot at riding with the Mongols?" I stared down at the stream of muscle cars and motorcycles speeding down Van Nuys Boulevard. Ciccone was known for his bad practical jokes as well as his choice of bad nicknames, but I could tell he was dead serious on this one. "What's going on, Johnny?" Ciccone knew I'd been hanging out with the Hells Angels for a few weeks, gathering intel for another case agent. At the time, ATF was working an investigation in conjunction with the Internal Revenue Service and the Ventura County Sheriff's Department, trying to make a prosecution against the Hells Angels. Ciccone also knew that the Mongols were the gang responsible for much of the biker-related murder and mayhem in the Los Angeles area. "Billy, why don't you forget that red and white crap and take a look at the Mongols?" The Hells Angels are often called the red and white because of the colors of their patch. The Mongols are known as the black and white. Ciccone, an 11-year veteran of ATF, wasn't your stereotypical agent. One-man, one-gun cases really didn't excite him much. 5'7", wiry, clean-cut, Ciccone was the kind of guy you might easily pass on the sidewalk or in a shopping mall and take no notice of. Despite his small stature, he had the fierce determination of a long-distance runner. He ran marathons and pumped weights with fanaticism. And within ATF, he carried himself with tremendous command presence. Ciccone and I had worked together from 1992 to 1998 in the ATF's Special Response Team, the federal version of SWAT. Over the years, I developed a deep admiration for John's skills. He could manage complex investigative cases like no one else I had seen in ATF. It's not a talent they can teach at the ATF Academy in Glencoe, Georgia. John was gifted with the ability to juggle the fragile egos and self-promoting attitudes of ATF management. I had also come to recognize Ciccone as a barracuda who could swim in the shadows of great white sharks and still come away with dinner. "Talk to me, Johnny," I said. "What you got on the Mongols?" Over the previous few months, Ciccone had been receiving increasingly disturbing reports on the surge in the Mongols' criminal activity across the United States. Those of us who worked the biker underworld for ATF had become alarmed as the Mongols' penchant for assaults, gunfights, and cold-blooded murder spread from the biker scene into the general populace. While this Mongol nation, as they refer to themselves, spans the southern and western United States and Mexico with growing chapters in Oklahoma, Arizona, Colorado, and Georgia, its stronghold is Southern California, in particular the Hispanic communities in and around Los Angeles. Ciccone told me he had a confidential informant, or CI, who looked promising. The young woman was willing to make an introduction to the gang, and if I was interested, Ciccone said, he'd deal with the administrative types, handle the paperwork, and we'd be good to go. "Well then," I said, "line it up." Neither Ciccone nor I realized the extent of the perils we'd be facing or the personal sacrifices we'd be making over the next 28 months. Neither of us dreamed that this routine phone call was about to become the most extensive undercover operation inside an outlaw motorcycle gang in the history of American law enforcement. In March 1998, I went up to Oakland to trade motorcycles with Special Agent Steve Martin, the group supervisor, also known as the resident agent in charge, the RAC, of the Oakland office. I held Martin, a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, in high esteem. We'd had a friendly but intense rivalry during our time at the ATF Special Response Team School. He and I were the two oldest candidates in the class. He'd finished number 1, and I'd finished a tight number 2. Earlier in his career, Martin had ridden undercover with another outlaw motorcycle gang, or OMG, the Warlocks out of Florida, and managed to send a well-deserving group of them to prison on federal drug, gun, and explosive charges. He had a soft spot for the bike he'd ridden in that case. When he relocated to Oakland, he had brought the bike with him as a trophy of his accomplishments. Now I hoped it would bring me a little luck. It was definitely a biker's bike, a stripped-down version of a Harley-Davidson FLHTC.